Rights and responsibilities of German soldiers in terms of D-Day. German Wehrmacht. This was the largest German force at D-Day, and they were responsible for the majority of the defense of Normandy. Additionally, they also had the largest variation of experience, which led to very conflicting responsibilities. Typically, the less inexperienced men, the static divisions, would be set up in pillboxes or defenses directly on the beaches, while a lot of the more experienced men were held back in reserve so they could be a quick response team to go to any points that were being broken through. Contrary to popular belief, German infantrymen actually weren't executed for disobeying orders, especially orders to kill civilians or Jewish prisoners. Usually they'd just be transferred to another responsibility, like digging latrines or such and such. The Waffen-SS. The Waffen-SS were similar to typical German infantry, including having pretty much the same squad composition and similar organizational structure. However, they were much more fanatical than your average German infantrymen, as they were controlled directly by Hitler, and they were responsible for most of the genocides under his rule. On D-Day, many of these men were kept in reserve, as they were considered elite units and were part of the quick response force. As a result, they didn't really arrive quick enough to stop any meaningful advance, and the Americans were pretty much able to roll right into many of the towns surrounding the beachheads. The Fallschirmjägers. The Fallschirmjägers were almost a different thing entirely from other German infantry. Unlike other countries, the German paratroopers were attached to the Air Force, not to the Army. As a result, they were under completely different control from most of the other infantry stationed on Normandy and fought several battles in the key first few hours of the landings. Additionally, the Fallschirmjäger were much more well-disciplined than both the Waffen-SS and the German Wehrmacht in large, as they were both elite units and not politically indoctrinated like the Waffen-SS was, and as a result, they were responsible for many less war crimes and genocides that the Waffen-SS unfortunately took part in. German prisoners. As a result of the landing on D-Day, many Germans were of course taken prisoner in the hours that followed. Interestingly, the Germans were actually treated quite well by many of the armies that captured them, as most of the Western countries weren't particularly bloodthirsty like Japanese or the Soviets were in the East. Because of this, many Germans were actually treated quite well. German officers were even allowed to eat in some restaurants when they were sent back to the United States or to Great Britain, which is interestingly even more than most black people were allowed at that point in history. However, after the war, many of them were sent back to Europe to help rebuild, as obviously they had caused a lot of destruction